Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week I take a look at the post-apocalyptic AVN Now and Then by ILS Productions. This is a completed game you can get through ILS Productions' Patreon. So, I love the post-apocalyptic genre, from The Stand to World War Z to Contagion and my personal favorite Children of Men, and the old-school radio show style of Impact Winter on Audible. While I love the post-apocalypse genre, there's a lot of garbage out there. I bailed on The Walking Dead in Season 3 because I hate watching stupid people do stupid things.
You ever hear the one about the stupid little prick named Rick?
So I was excited to play Now and Then. Everyone said it was very niche, and yeah, it kinda is. I feel like you take the family flavor very close to the edge without going over.
Come on, big money!
So first, a little update on my Patreon. Due to a number of issues I was having with Patreon, the platform, I'm going to be shutting down my Patreon and relaunching at a later date. So if you're interested in supporting me and my work, you can donate directly through PayPal with the link in the description, or donate through YouTube with the thanks button at the bottom of the video. With that out of the way, let's get into Now and Then. Now and Then takes place after the events of a widespread pandemic that has led to the fall of civilization. It's a tale as old as time. People were getting sick and turning into zombies. It's a lot more 28 Days Later with the fast zombies than The Walking Dead with the slow ones. You're in your 4th floor condo with your adopted daughter Carol, who recently turned 18 and was supposed to head off to college before shit hit the fan. The story is about you and Carol trying to survive and the people that you connect with along the way. My first impression is this is very, very Honey Select Renpai. If you like the Honey Select style of renders like I do, you'll be familiar with the style. Think Once in a Lifetime, Pale Carnations, Marked for Eternity, to name a few. I know people either love or hate these style of renders. I didn't think the renders were bad. I also didn't think they were particularly good, with the exception of the jiggle physics. Those were quite well done, and other than the main character desperately needing a haircut, the renders look pretty standard. There are music and sound effects. The sound effects are pretty well done, whereas there are only a handful of songs used in the entire game on repeat, so I eventually muted the music and put on my own. The real draw to this game is the story. There are 3 acts. In each act, there are different threats and locations. I have to say that early on, this is very, very story-driven and character-driven. I mean, when it starts, you're just chilling in your condo, and not a lot happens. You have water and power for a while, and you really don't start to have issues until all the services slowly shut off. The game, especially in Act 1, is very, very slow. This is not a short game, probably took me about 30 hours to complete. So what does happen in Act 1? You are mostly building a relationship with Carol and have to deal and cope with the decisions you made to survive. The reason the game is called Now and Then is there are many flashbacks to your life before the pandemic. These are interesting little snippets into what your life looked like, and other than the world getting more violent, not a lot changes for you. You were always kind of a loner, and this just got worse after your wife died. The only people you were really connected with before the pandemic started is Carol, Carol's best friend Naomi, and her family, Alice, Ted, and Greg, who you haven't seen since the pandemic started. But other than that, you transition into the pandemic fairly easily. You have a harder time dealing with the consequences of your decisions and actions, trying to survive because it is your job to make sure Carol and others are safe. The parts of the game that I found the most engaging were you building relationships with Carol and the people you meet along the way. In many ways, it reminds me of Come Home, but just in a war zone. There are times when you hear internal dialogue of all the characters, which added a bit of perspective and believability when actually building relationships. Besides being the luckiest guy in the world from a survival perspective, I mean, everything just seems to work out for you. It does feel like the act of survival takes its toll on the main character. Okay, let's move on to some of the things I didn't like. One is that I never really felt like the main character was in danger. So a lot of the action-based events that happened were interesting, but not terribly emotionally engaging. Now, they weren't bad, far from it, but when you look at a post-apocalyptic game, you expect to feel like you or the people you love are in danger. And the only time I really felt like anyone was in danger was the last few chapters of the game in Act 3. There are a total of 25 chapters, and in the first 15 chapters, there really was only one event that felt stressful. The problem with the main character and Carol is that before the pandemic, I really didn't get to know them as people. There are flashbacks to things they did, like women hitting on the main character and him turning them down, or talking survival with Ted, and dealing with the death of your wife. All these are interesting events, but at no point did I feel like I really knew the main character. He was so laid back and even keeled that he was just kind of bland.
I mean that you're bland, and I mean that you're boring.
It's the same thing with most of the other characters you meet, except for maybe Sydney and Hannah. They were the most fleshed out characters, and they felt like people pretty much immediately. I would also throw out Alice in there as well, but you spend most of the time with Carol and the main character. I only really saw character development after the pandemic started and you trying to survive, so I still couldn't tell you really what Carol's hopes and dreams were before the world went to hell. But I can tell you what she becomes. So the character growth is great throughout the game, just didn't really exist before the pandemic started. Just touching upon the adult content really quick, it starts really slow, but by the end there's so much adult content that it felt like you had an option every other scene. But as far as I know, it was all one-on-one and fairly vanilla, but you do have a variety of love interests eventually. So I enjoyed my time with Now and Then. I probably would have enjoyed it more if it started quicker and you got to know the characters as people from the beginning. But if you like building your own little family and watching them grow, then you will enjoy it. However, if you want a lot more conflict conflict, when you feel like the threats are real and the danger is real, then this is probably not for you. So for me, this is a play, with the caveat that you have to give it time to really get good. Let me know what you thought about Now and Then if you played it. Next week's game is Sunbreed, with Rebirth coming in a close second. I will try to review Rebirth at some point over the next couple of months, but next week look forward to my review of Sunbreed as I finish up Horror Month. Thanks again, until next time.